Sparkles wrapped in Jungkook's jacket. Jimin froze, because Jungkook whispered that to him. Beating heart, don't move, Hyung. Someone's watching us. The words left Jungkook's lips in a low, trembling whisper, so close that Jimin felt the warmth of his breath brush the back of his neck. The thunder of the stadium outside was deafening, yet somehow everything around them fell silent. Jimin stood frozen in the narrow backstage corridor, Jungkook's jacket suddenly heavy around his shoulders, smelling faintly of rain, smoke machines, and something unmistakably him. He hadn't even realized Jungkook had wrapped it around him until now. His mind was still spinning from the performance, from the adrenaline, from the way Jungkook had looked at him on stage, too intense, too focused, too something. But now, that intensity was different. It was sharp. Alert. Almost afraid. Jimin's breathing stilled. Watching us? Who? He whispered back, barely moving his lips. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. His hand came up slowly, gently but firmly, resting on the back of Jimin's shoulder as if shielding him, as if anchoring him in place. His touch was warm, grounding, and yet filled with a tension that made Jimin's heartbeat hammer against his ribs. Then Jungkook leaned closer. Don't turn around yet, he murmured, voice rougher now. Just trust me. Jimin did trust him, too easily, too instinctively, yet something about Jungkook tonight felt different, as though a line they'd never crossed before was suddenly dangerously close. He swallowed hard. What did you see? A shadow. Near the staff exit. Someone holding something. I don't think they were supposed to be there. Jimin felt a faint chill slip down his spine. Jungkook rarely looked afraid, and when he did, it meant something was very wrong. But mixed with that fear, there was something else in his eyes. Something Jimin couldn't decipher yet. They stood like that, too close, breaths tangled, for a beat too long. It was enough time for Jimin's instincts to catch up with his body, enough time for him to feel the tremor in Jungkook's hand on his shoulder. Jungkook, Jimin said softly, you're shaking. Jungkook exhaled shakily, almost as if he had been holding it in. I thought I lost you for a second on stage, he said. You weren't breathing right. You pushed too hard again. Jimin blinked as though that's what this was really about, the fear, the tension, and the jacket warm, enveloping, protective. He felt Jungkook's fingers curl slightly on his shoulder, as if resisting the urge to pull him closer. As soon as we ran off stage, you looked like you were about to collapse, Jungkook whispered. Hyung, you scared the hell out of me. Jimin's chest tightened. He hadn't expected this. Not the fear, not the rawness, not the confession trembling at the edge of Jungkook's voice. He had always known Jungkook cared, everyone knew that. But this was something deeper. Something that weighed between them in the dim backstage corridor like an unsaid truth begging to surface. Jimin slowly turned, ignoring Jungkook's earlier warning, and Jungkook didn't stop him. Instead, their eyes met too close, too real, and Jimin could see it clearly now. The fear wasn't about the shadow, not fully. It was about him. Jimin lifted a hand and touched Jungkook's wrist, gently prying his fingers from his shoulder. I'm okay, he whispered, though his voice wavered. I'm just tired. That's all. Jungkook shook his head. No. It's not just that. His eyes darkened, filled with something Jimin couldn't name. You keep pretending you're fine. And I keep pretending I don't notice. The corridor felt impossibly small suddenly, the air thick with the scent of sweat, dust from props, faint traces of perfume from dancers who'd passed through moments earlier. But all Jimin could focus on was Jungkook, on the way his voice cracked as though holding something back. Hyung, Jungkook whispered, why won't you let anyone take care of you? Jimin's breath caught. No one had ever asked him that before. No one had ever dared. His instinctive response, the practiced smile, the deflection, died before it reached his lips. Because Jungkook wasn't asking casually. He wasn't teasing or nagging. He was pleading. A sudden crash echoed from the far end of the hallway, a dropped metal case, a staff shouting an apology, but both of them flinched. The moment shattered, replaced again by the sharp awareness that someone had been lurking just minutes before. Jungkook stepped in front of Jimin without thinking, shoulders squared, eyes scanning the dim corridor. Stay behind me, he muttered. But Jimin grabbed his wrist, stopping him. Jungkook, he said quietly, look at me. It took him a moment, but Jungkook finally turned back, his breaths uneven, his disbelief raw, because Jimin was touching him with a gentleness he rarely showed anyone. And then, softly, too softly, Jimin said the one thing Jungkook had least expected. I freeze when you whisper like that, because I don't know what you're trying to protect me from. Or what you're trying to hide. Jungkook stared at him, shocked, cornered by truth, and then he whispered the words that made Jimin's blood run cold. I'm hiding how much I need you to be okay, because if you fall apart, I don't know what will happen to me. The words hung between them, raw, trembling, impossible to take back, and for the first time that night, Jimin felt his own fear bloom quietly in his chest. Not because of the shadow, not because of the threat Jungkook thought he'd seen, but because Jungkook had said something that felt too close to a confession neither of them was ready for, and Jimin didn't know what to do with a truth like that. The door slammed behind them with a metallic thud, echoing through the dim rehearsal room like a warning neither of them wanted to hear. Jimin didn't mean to walk this fast, nor did Jungkook mean to follow so closely, but the tension between them had grown so tight it felt like a wire ready to snap. The room was half-lit, abandoned except for a single flickering stage lamp and the smell of old wood and sweat soaked into the floors from past practices. It was the one room backstage no one used anymore, the perfect place for the conversation Jungkook clearly wasn't letting him run from. Jungkook closed the door slowly and leaned against it, chest rising and falling with unsteady breaths. "Why did you leave like that?" he demanded quietly. "You just walked off. No word. No look. Nothing." Jimin kept his back to him, gripping the collar of Jungkook's jacket that still hung around his shoulders. The fabric was warm. Too warm. He wanted to remove it, but doing so felt like removing the only shield he had left. "Because you said something you shouldn't have," Jimin murmured. "What exactly did I say that was wrong?" "That you need me to be okay because you don't know what'll happen to you. It's the truth. And that's why you shouldn't have said it." Silence thickened around them like smoke. Jungkook pushed off the door, slowly moving toward him. "Hyung," he said, voice softer now. "Don't run from this." Jimin finally turned, and when he did, Jungkook stopped walking. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, neither spoke, the air charged with something that felt dangerous, not physically, but emotionally, like stepping past a boundary they had kept intact for years. Jimin swallowed hard. "You're making this complicated." "You're the one making it complicated. I'm trying to protect us." "From what?" Jungkook's voice cracked, frustration bleeding through. "From feelings? From honesty? From me?" Jimin flinched. Jungkook noticed a flash of hurt crossed his face, quickly replaced by anger he tried and failed to contain. "Why do you look scared of me?" he asked quietly. "I'm not scared of you," Jimin whispered. "Then what is it? Tell me." Jimin opened his mouth, but the words refused to come out. How was he supposed to tell Jungkook the real reason? That every time Jungkook touched him, every time he looked at him with those unbearably sincere eyes, Jimin felt the ground beneath him tilting, threatening to swallow him whole. Jungkook stepped closer, and Jimin didn't move away. "Hyung," Jungkook said, voice trembling. "I know you think I'm just being emotional because you almost fainted. But that's not it. I meant every word." Jimin shut his eyes, but Jungkook continued, each word landing like a blow. "I meant it backstage. I meant it on stage. I meant it months ago when you kept pushing through pain and I pretended not to see it because I didn't know what else to do, because you wouldn't let me in." "Jungkook," Jimin breathed, barely audible. "No. You don't get to brush this off again." Jungkook reached out, gripping Jimin's wrist, not hard, but firm enough to anchor him. "Let me carry some of what you're holding," he whispered. "I'm not asking you to confess anything. But don't shut me out anymore. I can't," he exhaled shakily. "I can't keep watching you break yourself." Jimin opened his eyes, and Jungkook froze at what he saw there. Fear. Not of him. Of himself. "Jungkook. I don't trust myself around you," Jimin whispered, voice cracking. "That's the truth." Jungkook blinked, completely thrown. "What does that mean?" "It means," Jimin looked down, chest heaving. "It means you make me feel things I don't know how to control." His confession hung in the air, heavy and fragile. Jungkook's grip on his wrist loosened, fingers trembling. "Say that again," he whispered, hardly breathing. Jimin shook his head. "I shouldn't have said anything." "No." Jungkook's voice dropped lower, almost desperate. "Don't take it back. Not this. Not when He cut himself off, jaw tense. Jimin's eyes snapped up. "When you what?" Jungkook stared at him, torn between restraint and revelation, the kind of look someone gives when standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that one more step might change everything forever. "Hyung," he said slowly, "I need to be careful with what I say next." "Why?" Jimin whispered, because once I say it, I can't undo it. The room felt unbearably still. Jimin took a step closer. His voice broke when he spoke. Then be honest. For once, just be honest. The last piece of Jungkook's restraint snapped. He cupped Jimin's face with both hands, not pulling him closer, but holding him still, forcing him to see the truth in his eyes. I'm terrified of losing you, he whispered. Not as a teammate. Not as a friend. As you. As the person who, his breath caught. As the person I can't stop thinking about. Jimin's heart slammed against his ribs. Jungkook wasn't finished. When you collapse, I feel like I can't breathe. When you smile, I feel like I'm losing control. When you're hurting and you pretend you're fine, it makes me want to shake you until you tell me everything. Jimin's lips parted, but no sound came out. And when you walk away from me, Jungkook whispered, it feels like my whole world tilts. Jimin trembled under his touch. Jungkook. He didn't know if Jungkook wanted comfort, answers, or a denial. He wasn't even sure what he wanted himself, but before he could speak again, a sudden sound echoed outside the door, footsteps rushing past, voices raised. Someone yelling urgently into a radio. Both of them froze. Jungkook's hands dropped from Jimin's face as his expression shifted from raw vulnerability to sharp alertness. Security's looking for someone, Jungkook said under his breath. They said earlier someone suspicious got inside. If they're running now, Jimin felt his stomach tighten. What if the person you saw earlier wasn't just some staff member, he whispered. Jungkook moved toward the door, pressing his ear against it. Hyung, he said quietly, stay behind me again. Just in case. Jimin grabbed his hand before he touched the handle. Jungkook, he said, voice shaking for a completely different reason now, don't open it yet. Their fingers tangled, unintentionally but irreversibly, and everything, fear, confession, danger, desire, blurred into one impossible moment neither of them could step away from. The footsteps outside grew louder. Someone pounded on a door nearby. Someone shouted a warning. The world outside was shifting into chaos, but inside the room, only one truth mattered. Jungkook squeezed Jimin's hand, eyes dark, voice a low promise. I'm not letting anything hurt you. Not tonight. Not ever. Jimin held on tighter because for the first time in years, he believed him. The pounding outside the rehearsal room grew louder, footsteps, urgent calls, the crackle of radios, and the chaos seeped beneath the door like a draft of cold air. But the room itself felt unbearably warm, as though the tension between Jimin and Jungkook had raised the temperature by sheer force. Jungkook still held Jimin's hand, fingers locked tightly, as if the world outside could pull Jimin away at any second. Jimin didn't know when he started trembling, but Jungkook felt it immediately. Hey, Jungkook whispered, turning back to him. Look at me. Jimin forced his gaze upward. Jungkook's eyes were dark, sharp with concern, but underneath that concern was something else, something that made Jimin's breath catch, something that felt like a flame flickering too close to his skin. Don't be scared, Jungkook murmured, stepping closer. I'm here. That's exactly why I'm scared, Jimin whispered back. Jungkook froze, confusion flickering across his face. What do you mean? Jimin shook his head, voice low. You make things too intense. Too real. Too dangerous. Is that a bad thing? It is when I don't know how to handle it. Jungkook swallowed hard, eyes burning with a mixture of hurt and desire. You don't have to handle it alone. I'm right here. Another set of footsteps thundered past the door, shaking the frame. Jimin jumped slightly. Jungkook reached instinctively, his hand sliding to Jimin's waist, pulling him closer without thinking that it was too close. Far too close. Jimin felt Jungkook's heartbeat against his ribs, fast and uneven, and the heat of Jungkook's body enveloped him like the jacket still resting on his shoulders. Hyung, you're shaking, Jungkook whispered. So are you, Jimin breathed. Jungkook's hand tightened on him. I'm shaking because you keep saying things that. He cut himself off, jaw clenching. You're not the only one struggling with this. Then why do you keep pushing? Jimin whispered. Because you make it impossible not to. The confession hung in the air, hotter than anything Jungkook had said before. Jimin felt something twist in his chest, fear, longing, confusion, all tangled together so tightly he couldn't separate them anymore. His voice broke when he finally spoke. You don't understand what you're doing to me. Then tell me, Jungkook replied, stepping even closer, until there was barely a breath between them. Tell me what I'm doing to you. Jimin's lips parted, But no sound came out. He didn't know how to confess that Jungkook's words hit too deep, that Jungkook's touch left him off balance, that every look Jungkook gave him felt like being stripped open. He didn't know how to admit the way his heartbeat always betrayed him around Jungkook, or the way his thoughts spiraled out of control whenever Jungkook stepped too near. Jungkook waited, breathing softly against Jimin's cheek, his voice low enough to vibrate in Jimin's bones. "What am I doing to you, Hyung?" he whispered again. Jimin finally exhaled, shaky and raw. "You're making me forget who I'm supposed to be." Jungkook's breath hitched. "And who is that?" "Someone who doesn't fall apart this easily." "You're not falling apart," Jungkook said gently. "You're finally being honest." Jimin almost laughed, painfully, bitterly. "I don't know how to be honest with you without ruining everything." "How could honesty ruin anything?" Jungkook asked. "It could ruin us." The words burst out before Jimin could stop them, and Jungkook froze, eyes widening slightly as if Jimin had struck him. "Us?" Jungkook echoed, voice barely above a breath. Jimin felt heat rush to his face, but he didn't look away. "Yes. Us." A moment passed, long, vibrating, dangerous. Jungkook lifted a hand and brushed his thumb along Jimin's jaw, the softest touch, but it sent shivers down Jimin's spine. "You talk like there's already an us to ruin," Jungkook whispered. "There is," Jimin replied without thinking. "And that's the problem." Before Jungkook could react, another crash echoed outside, followed by someone shouting, "We found him, South Corridor. Don't let him reach the exit." Jungkook immediately stepped in front of Jimin again, protective instinct taking over so fast it made Jimin's chest tighten. "We have to move," Jungkook said urgently. "They're heading this way." Jimin grabbed his arm. "Jungkook, wait, what if he came looking for us?" "Then he's not getting near you," Jungkook snapped, pulling Jimin toward the far end of the room. But Jimin resisted, forcing Jungkook to turn to him. Jimin's voice shook. "You're not invincible. Stop acting like nothing can hurt you." "I'm not worried about me." "You should be," Jimin insisted. Jungkook softened just slightly. "Hyung, I've handled worse." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" "That you think protecting me means you have to throw yourself in danger first." "Because I can handle it," Jungkook said, voice rising with emotion. "I've always handled it." Jimin stepped closer, eyes burning. "Not this time." "Not for me." Jungkook blinked, caught off guard by the ferocity in Jimin's voice. For a moment, the world outside seemed to vanish. The footsteps, the shouts, the danger all faded into a distant hum. Only the two of them remained. Jungkook's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then tell me what you want me to do." Jimin stared at him, chest heaving. "I want you to stop acting like losing you wouldn't destroy me." Jungkook froze, shock, disbelief. Something deeper. It flickered across his face all at once. Jimin felt the confession hang in the air like a live wire, dangerous, glowing, impossible to touch without consequence. Jungkook stepped forward, slowly, as if approaching something sacred. His hand rose again, hesitating just inches from Jimin's cheek. "Say that again," he whispered, voice breaking. Jimin's breath trembled. "I can't lose you." Jungkook exhaled sharply, as though the words physically struck him. The door rattled suddenly, someone grabbing the handle from the outside. Jungkook lunged forward, grabbing Jimin's shoulders, pushing him gently but urgently behind the stacked practice mats. "Stay down," he breathed. "Whatever happens, don't stand up." "Jungkook," Jimin protested, but Jungkook looked at him, and the look in his eyes stole the words from Jimin's mouth. "I'm not leaving you," Jungkook whispered. "But I am protecting you." The handle twisted again. Someone was coming in. Jimin's heart pounded against his ribs, loud and frantic, but even louder was the sound of Jungkook's promise echoing in his ears. "I can't lose you. I'm not letting anything hurt you, not tonight, not ever." And as the door began to crack open, Jimin realized something terrifying. Nothing, not the shadow outside, not the danger, not the chaos, scared him as much as the truth growing between them. A truth neither of them could run from anymore. The door creaked open just enough for a shadow to slip through. Jungkook moved before Jimin could breathe, stepping into the open with the tense grace of someone ready to fight if he had to. Jimin stayed half hidden behind the stacked mats, fingers digging into the floor to keep from leaping out after him. A figure entered, tall, hood pulled low over his face, moving silently except for the faint scrape of his shoes against the floor. He paused in the doorway, as if listening for something. Jungkook's body coiled, tension radiating off him like heat. Jimin couldn't see the intruder's face, only the glint of something metallic at his side. Jungkook's voice broke the silence first, low and steady. You're not supposed to be here. The man didn't respond. His head tilted slightly, as if studying Jungkook's stance, evaluating him like prey or threat. Then he took one step inside. Another. Slow. Controlled. Jimin felt a cold spike of fear shoot through him, and the instinct to protect Jungkook nearly made him rise from his hiding place. But Jungkook glanced sideways, barely, just enough to send Jimin a silent command. Stay. Jungkook lifted his chin. Put whatever you're holding on the floor. Still no response. Instead, the man reached into his pocket. Jungkook tensed, muscles constricting, ready to spring. Jimin's breath caught painfully, nails digging into the wooden floor. The man pulled out a phone. He tapped it once and a tiny red light blinked on. A recording device. Jungkook's expression flickered from confusion to something darker: anger, betrayal, dread. Who are you recording? The man lifted the phone slightly, pointing it toward the room as if searching for someone. Jungkook's jaw clenched when the device angled dangerously close to the mats where Jimin was hiding. Stop, Jungkook warned, voice sharper now. Who sent you? Still no answer. Jungkook took a slow step forward, put the device down. Now. For a moment, it seemed like the intruder would continue ignoring him until Jungkook stepped closer, eyes blazing. The man finally spoke, voice distorted under the hood. I'm looking for him. Jungkook's body blocked most of the room. Who? The intruder lifted the recorder a little higher. The one you were with backstage. Jimin's blood went cold. Jungkook instantly moved, positioning himself squarely between the man and where Jimin hid. You're not going anywhere near him, Jungkook said, voice deadly calm. Leave. The man didn't. Instead, he tilted his head again in a way that felt eerily observational. So it's true then, he murmured. He matters to you. Jungkook stiffened. Jimin felt something twist painfully in his chest. The man stepped closer. People talk. People notice. He's not safe around you anymore. Jungkook grabbed the man's wrist in a flash, twisting it behind his back with enough force to make him gasp. The recorder clattered to the floor. You don't get to talk about him, Jungkook growled, voice dropping to a dangerous timbre Jimin rarely heard. Not like that. Not ever. The man twisted, trying to break free, but Jungkook held him easily, pinning him against the wall. Who sent you? Jungkook demanded. The man laughed under his breath. You think I'm alone? Jimin froze. Footsteps approached from the hallway. Not one pair, several. Jungkook cursed under his breath and shoved the man away, stepping back as 3 more shadows appeared in the doorway. Jimin didn't remember standing. He only realized he had when he saw Jungkook whip around, eyes wide with shock, as Jimin stepped out from behind the mats. Young. Get back. But it was too late. The intruders stepped into the room, forming a loose semicircle around them. Their faces were hidden, but their posture was unmistakable, controlled, confident, rehearsed. This wasn't random, this was planned. Jungkook moved in front of Jimin again, arms spread slightly as if shielding him with his entire body. What do you want? He demanded. Say it. One of them spoke, voice cold. We want the truth. The truth you're hiding. The truth you almost confessed backstage. Jimin felt his heart stop. Jungkook's fists clenched. You don't know anything. The man tilted his head. Don't we? Another raised his phone, tapping it. We followed you. We heard enough. Jimin felt Jungkook go absolutely still, frozen in a way Jimin had never seen before. The man continued, tone clinical. We know what you feel for him. The room shattered into silence. Jimin stared at the intruder, breath thinning, vision blurring at the edges. Jungkook seemed carved from stone, face pale, jaw tight enough to crack, eyes wide with something between fury and fear. Jungkook spoke slowly, deliberately. You don't get to decide what's real and what isn't. But you said it yourself, the man replied calmly. You told him you couldn't lose him. That he's the one who. Stop, Jungkook snapped, voice almost breaking. They didn't. You care about him more than anyone else. Enough to follow him off stage. Enough to hide him. Enough to. Jungkook lunged. Two of the men stepped forward instantly, blocking him, hands raised not aggressively, but as if they had expected him to react like this. Jungkook. Jimin cried, grabbing his arm before he could throw a punch. Jungkook turned to Jimin, breath shaking, eyes burning with something wild. He's lying, he whispered, barely, desperately. I know, Jimin whispered back, but the words had already sunk too deep. The intruders stepped back slowly, almost satisfied. "Just remember," the hooded one said, lifting the recovered recorder. "Once a truth is spoken out loud, it can't be buried again." Jungkook moved again, but Jimin held him back with both hands, heart racing, muscles burning. The intruders backed out the door, and no threat, no weapons, just words more dangerous than anything they could have carried. When the door finally shut, Jungkook's body collapsed against Jimin's, breaths ragged, hands trembling like he'd been holding himself together for too long. Jimin grabbed his face, forcing Jungkook to look at him. "Jungkook, look at me. It's okay. You didn't say anything wrong. You didn't." Jungkook shook his head violently. "I let them hear. I let them twist it. I should have protected you." "You did," Jimin whispered, voice breaking. "You always do. But now they know," Jungkook choked out. About what I," Jimin pressed a hand over Jungkook's heart to steady him. "They don't know the truth," he murmured. "They know pieces. Fragments. They don't know what it means." Jungkook looked at him with a rawness that made Jimin's chest ache. "Then tell me," Jungkook whispered, stepping closer until their foreheads nearly touched. "Tell me, what does it mean to you?" Jimin froze, not because of fear but because the distance between their heartbeats had disappeared. Jungkook's fingers brushed Jimin's jaw, trembling. "If it's just me, if I'm the only one who you're not," Jimin breathed. Jungkook's eyes widened. The words spilled out before Jimin could stop them, too soft to be safe, too honest to take back. "You're not the only one losing control." The storm had quieted by the time Jimin opened his eyes, though the echo of everything that had happened still pulsed in the air like a heartbeat refusing to settle. The room was dim, washed in the bluish glow of early dawn, and Jungkook was sitting at the edge of the bed with his head buried in his hands. For a long moment, Jimin simply watched him, watched the tension in his shoulders, the tremor in his breath, the silent war behind his lowered lashes. It was rare to see Jungkook like this, stripped of performance and pride, and something inside Jimin curled with both ache and fear. Jimin pushed himself upright, the blanket slipping from his lap. "Kook," he whispered, voice hoarse but steady. Jungkook didn't move at first, as though he hadn't heard. But then he inhaled shakily, lifting his gaze. His eyes were red-lined, raw, almost pleading. Jimin felt his chest pull tight. "You scared me last night," Jungkook said softly, the words trembling at the edges. "Not because you were hurt. But because I thought I'd pushed you too far. Because I thought you'd walk away after everything I told you." Jimin crawled closer, the mattress dipping under his weight. Jungkook watched him with that same haunted mixture of longing and fear, the same expression that had split open the truth neither of them could keep hidden anymore. Jimin reached out and touched Jungkook's cheek, brushing away the tension with his thumb. "I didn't walk away," he murmured. "I'm right here. But for how long?" Jungkook's voice cracked on the last word. "Everything's changing. The world is watching us more closely than ever. One wrong move and," he swallowed, unable to finish. "And what?" Jimin breathed. "We lose everything." He leaned in until their foreheads touched, the warmth of Jungkook's skin grounding him. "Kook, what we almost lost last night wasn't our careers. It was each other." Jungkook closed his eyes as if the truth cut and healed him at the same time. Jimin felt Jungkook's hand move hesitantly to his waist, fingers gripping like he was afraid Jimin might dissolve into mist if he didn't hold on. "I don't know how to protect us," Jungkook admitted. "I've never known what to do when it comes to you." Jimin smiled faintly, bittersweet and soft. "You don't have to protect us alone." Jungkook let out a breath that sounded like surrender and relief tangled together. "You still want this," he whispered. "After everything you saw? After everything I confessed?" Jimin let his fingers slide into Jungkook's hair, pulling him closer until their lips hovered a breath apart. "I want you," he said. "Not your perfection. Not your strength. Not the version of you the world thinks they know. Just you." Jungkook exhaled shakily and pressed his forehead harder against Jimin's. For a moment, neither spoke. The world outside the window was waking up, soft light spilling through the curtains like a promise that not all endings had to hurt. When Jungkook finally spoke, his voice was quiet but steady. "Then let's stop running." Jimin froze for a second, stunned not by fear but by the weight of the moment. You mean it? Yes. Jungkook lifted Jimin's hand and pressed his lips to the back of it, slow and deliberate. I'm tired of hiding how I feel. I'm tired of pretending you're just my friend when every night I end up thinking about you more than anything else in my life. I don't know what the future looks like, but I know that every version of it feels wrong without you. Jimin felt his throat tighten, emotions crashing in waves he could barely contain. Then we'll face it together, he whispered. Jungkook pulled Jimin into his arms, the embrace tight and grounding. It wasn't desperate this time. It wasn't frantic or fearful. It was steady. Certain. The kind of certainty that felt like the final piece of a puzzle that had been aching for years. Jimin rested his head against Jungkook's shoulder, listening to the quiet rhythm of his heartbeat. The storm inside him softened. The doubts that had chased him through every episode of their unraveling finally faded like mist under sunlight. They stayed like that until the light grew warm and golden, painting their silhouettes on the floor, two figures once tangled in fear, now wrapped in something far stronger than secrecy or confusion. Jungkook eventually whispered into Jimin's hair, voice gentle and real. Whatever comes next, I want it to be with you. Jimin closed his eyes and held him closer. That's enough, he answered. And in that soft-spoken ending, layered with everything they had survived and everything they were still learning to become, the story found its quiet truth, not in grand declarations or dramatic twists, but in the simple, steady decision to choose each other again and again without running, without fear, just them.